welcome back, listeners, to the BizBlend podcast with your host, Sana. Now, hear me out. Leadership isn't just about steering the ship when the seas are calm, it's about finding your footing when the storms hit and the map no longer makes sense. Listeners, today's guest knows this terrain intimately. As you know, on BizBlend, we blend business with heart and heart with hustle. Introducing to all of you listeners, Patti Feeney. She's a leadership coach, author, and change navigator with over 25 years of experience guiding leaders through transitions. But what I believe, what makes Patty's story different is that she doesn't speak from just a mountaintop. She waves from the trail, backpack full of practical, pragmatic strategies, and a few scars that prove the journey. And she's here today on the BizPlan to talk about how leadership and meaning aren't reserved for when you have figured it all out. They are found while you are in that messy middle. So, whether you are facing a career pivot or you're navigating change, or just trying to lead yourself inside out, inward, this conversation is for you. So grab your metaphorical, of course, hiking boots. We are diving into leadership, growth, and also finding meaning right in the thick of it. So, with that, Patty, welcome to the show. And it is such an honor to have you with us.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here.
Okay. Patty, you have, spent years coaching leaders through transitions. But then life threw you into one yourself. So if you can share, how was that experience like? How was the journey of transition like? And what surprised you the most, about navigating your own messy middle?
Thank you. Thank you for the question. My work really evolved as I was working with leaders as they were looking for things on the horizon. They were visioning, they were creating mission statements and trying to lead teams of people toward a common goal. And what I would hear a lot was that feeling of imposter syndrome. Like, why am I the one that they're looking at? Why am I don't feel like I even know the path to get there, and yet all of these people are finding me, and they were feeling lost. And I kept hearing it over and over. It was a common theme. So we would work together. As a coach, I'm really a thinking partner to help leaders and professionals bring out their own strengths. And the common theme was really that there was meaning in
Mhm.
that, like you said, the messy middle, that feeling of I don't belong or why am I leading? All of those questions that we ask ourselves. And that's the common thread. And what I found was there was a lot of heart that these leaders were figuring out in that space where they were thrown that curveball like, "Oh, I thought I had it figured out, or I thought that once I had this job and I would lead these people that it would all make sense, and now it makes less sense." So as I was helping leaders get through that and find meaning and I was really enthusiastically helping them because this was something that even I, throughout my career, was feeling like, "Oh, let's just get through that transition phase. Let's just go through it as quickly as we can." I was amazed at how much heart and how much juice, how much knowledge and how much learning we were doing in that space. And as
Mhm.
I was really getting going and really finding that thread, I was laid off. And And so I lost a job that I felt like, wow, I thought I was doing something really good. And I think as anybody would experience that feeling of being laid off, it's out of your hands. You're not the only one. It's not because you've done something wrong. And And so now, I think we go through these curves of feeling all of those things. You feel all the feelings. You're going through loss. You're grieving this work and you're grieving the job. But then I realized I was going through that messy middle, and um, and I had to embrace what I was going through and really stop and look around and say, ask myself, what am I learning right now? What am I experiencing? How can I pause and just take stock of where I've been, grieve it, but then also look ahead and say, I'm now open to what opportunities are available to me. And it's that was the key component for me, that the openness. And even in my own, I full well admit that even as I was helping other people, the openness, I feel like, is the key. It's that flexibility, that open to new possibilities. We continue to chase and chase and chase, thinking that we're going to be happy or we're going to get to the next thing. But then the universe or whatever has another plan for us. So that was my pivotal moment. And that's sort of where knew things started to open up for me. And I help leaders now in a whole new light, in a whole new way.
I can so much connect with that, Patty, because um now I don't even remember, but yeah, um, 4, 3 years back when I experienced the layoff, you know, uh, surprisingly during the pandemic, I didn't get laid off. So I was kind of in that zone that, okay, probably I am immune to this. However, as you mentioned, universe had different plans for me. I got laid off, and then I kind of, was kind of here and there into opportunities, but I wasn't feeling myself. And then I got into podcasting, and this something kind of, I felt that it's aligning with what I feel or what I value. So, yeah, I mean, sometimes life is really unpredictable and universe has its own plans for us. Yeah. I think the
Yeah.
openness to embrace is the key. Yeah, you were saying something, Barry. Sorry to cut you off. Yeah.
No, it is the openness, and it almost sounds a little corny. People want a quick fix. But there's a process, and it's about following the process of just being true to who you are and allowing yourself to grieve the what was and not live there, but to process that, to excuse me, to reflect on that and to use that experience to help launch you forward, to keep the energy and the vibrations high so that you can be ready when the next thing happens. I mean, imagine if you were laid off, or you were, even if you look at the opposite spectrum. I've worked with leaders who they were promoted and they didn't feel ready for it, or it sort of came out of the blue for them, and that alone was something that jumped into their path. They didn't plan that. So if you're not in a place where you can sort of be in a nimble mind space,
Yeah.
then, I could imagine you'd be, curled up under the covers, or, you know, being in a space of, nope, that's not what I want, not what I want to do. I have it set. This is what I'm going to do. And then you're not ready for the next big thing. And, podcasting has also been something that I have enjoyed. And in that transition, I had the Genuine Leader podcast, and now I'm going to my Then What podcast because things shift and that's okay.
True. That's true.
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful, Barry. Okay. Now, You also talk about finding meaning while still in the thick of change. You gave us a quick glimpse of that, how you transitioned through that change, and now you are also transitioning between, your podcasts. So how can leaders cultivate this sense of purpose when they are aware that the future is kind of uncertain? I think this question really holds so much of relevance right now in today's context. So I would love to know.
Yeah, yeah. The self-reflection, I think, is one of the key pieces is to and I teach this for, in leadership development too, when we think about emotional intelligence, we think about self-awareness, and we think about the way that we lead. Do we always know what our style is? And we're always reacting. It's kind of a knee jerk. Okay, this happened. Now I need to do this. This
Mm,
person said something. I need to react. I need to respond. And it's okay to use silence as a strategy. And I say this even in conversation when things might get heated, or if someone is very emotional and they're coming to you to talk to you. I've always talked about silence being a strategy. It works even when you're thinking about the way that you manage life. So something jumps in your path, you're laid off, or some big thing happens, you might lose someone, or even just if a colleague was laid off or a colleague that you work closely with changes organizations, they get another job. Those things, you realize only then how much those things meant to you. So I would recommend that people do that self reflection now in this space. Give themselves the silence to reflect, even if you're driving. You don't have to journal. This isn't a big exercise type of activity. This is what means something to me in my life. And even if it's your family, if it's your car, if it's your commute because it's the quiet time, or it's the work that you do, make mental note of those things. And when you're looking at what life is giving you, when you're looking at even at the grocery store, when things happen, "Oh, this cart is broken. This wheel doesn't work. Oh, God, I can't believe this always happens to me." Think of
yeah.
that as an opportunity to go grab another cart. You never know who you're going to meet over there. Keep your head up. There might be someone that smiles at you that kind of changes the perspective that you have. Be aware of the things that mean something to you, the things that light you up, the things that give you that joy and that excitement, because those are the things that are going to keep the elevation high, keep the energy high. Because then, for those who were laid off, that job offer is right around the corner, and you want to be ready. You want to be ready to know, yes, that means something to me, or you know what? I don't really even like to do that type of work. I like working outside. I don't want to work in a corporate environment or whatever it is. You're ready and you know those things that mean something to you.
Well, once again, simple yet so profound. I mean, yes, it is easier said than done. However, I have personally experienced, a lot of, uh, you know, uh, moments that you shared, that you really never know, and it's not like that. You should always be looking out. Just have that openness and clarity within you that, okay, um, as you mentioned that why this car is broken or why this is not working, why is that happening to me. I think that's too judgmental. And often in so many conversations I have with my guests, they often say that just re-evaluate and just write down the thoughts or the questions you have for yourselves on a paper, and check whether you would be talking in that same tone to someone else or not.
Mhm.
That
Right.
realization can be really, really, it can be kind of, creeping up or can be really sort of disheartening. So um, I
Yeah.
completely agree with you.
One of my favorite authors is Michael Singer, and
Mhm.
he writes a few books, the Surrender Experiment and the Untethered Soul. But he talks
Mhm.
about this way to observe what you're feeling. And we feel, as humans, we feel so much. There's so much that happens to us throughout the day. Like, I'm sitting here and, oh my gosh, I'm hot. I could go on for probably 10 minutes about the weather or about how I'm uncomfortable. But if we just observe it, we observe the feeling, we observe the emotion and how we're reacting to it, and then just let it pass through you. Okay, it's warm. I'm warm. I have this list of things I need to do and I need to get through it, or let me go get a drink of water. And that observation, it's awareness and then the observation. And we don't always need to put so much emotion and so much feeling and so much reaction, because then those things kind of bleed negatively into other parts of our life.
Yeah, right. That's right. And also, um, you you strongly emphasize on this, and this I also completely agree that leadership it begins within. So as you mentioned that we often we are reactive, and it often comes from a lack of inner clarity. So how do you guide leaders to tune into uh, you know understanding the internal landscape, other than just focusing on external strategies?
Yeah, there are so many assessments that are out there that help to guide. I've used many of them, like the Enneagram and Myers-Briggs type indicator, Strength Finders. These are way, and there's a lot of free ones online. I think the 16 personality types online you can do for free, and it just kind of gives you a gauge. And I there was a time in my career where I was completely against these assessments because I felt like
Mhm.
people were they were using them to really box themselves in and say, "Oh, this is who I am." And they'll read the book and the description, and they'll just really keep themselves in that box. And it almost allowed them the permission to not engage with other people in certain conversations because, well, this is how I handle it. This is how I can't think about things linear uh in a different way. I have to think about it very analytically. And then I got to a point where when I taught any of these assessments or would bring them into teams, I would also
Mhm.
teach how important it is that we understand we're in all of those boxes. We're in an Enneagram or Myers Briggs, those are tendencies. Those don't put us in a box. But I encourage leaders to find one of them to use as a structure to
Mhm.
understand the different types of emotions that you can feel throughout your day. To me, it's validating. To me, to look at all of those different personality types, I can say, oh, wow, I have had days like that where that's how I felt, that's how I was thinking, or that's how I engaged with that person. And maybe most of the time, I'm more in this type personality. For example, in the Myers Briggs, I'm an INFP, I standing for introvert. And I have had
Mhm.
so many people say to me, "You're not an introvert. You're doing this class. You're teaching us. You're doing exercises and helping us and you're talking to everybody." Well, introversion doesn't mean I'm shy and I'm quiet. It also doesn't mean that I can't put on a hat when I need to do certain work. So, my number one guidance would be to use one of these assessments to help understand some of the language, to understand some of the leadership styles, personality traits, and tendencies. See where you fit, and then also recognize where you have tendencies in other types and what those situations are. That helps to really give you a well-rounded idea type of leader you are, the type of professional you are, the type of human you are.
Wow. That's quite a mindful approach. Yeah, and it's a valid concern. I mean, before even analyzing all of this, he was skeptical that how is it possible to kind of categorize or box, someone in using those assessments. But yeah, I mean, just as we talk about AI not replacing us, but just giving us that head start, that
Right.
structured steadfast our work. I think these assessments, they can give us that guidance to identify, okay, maybe I'm not fully introvert, or maybe I'm not fully an INFP or any other personality type, but I may fall into this particular category also. So it's kind of an overall overview about your leadership type.
Yes. Yeah.
Huh, okay, okay, Patty. So before we wrap up this really, really interesting conversation, um, in a world that often celebrates arriving at the mountaintop, just let's just admit it that yes, um, you know, people get rewarded. They always, feel okay if I have this, have that, I do this. Okay, maybe maybe this school friend of mine is now a CEO of a big company, but I'm here right now, just freelancer. Um, I mean, how do we reframe our mindset to appreciate the journey itself, especially the detours or the messy middles or the thick, you know, changes that we encounter in our journeys?
Mm. Yeah. Yeah, it's, always chasing, thinking, "I'm gonna be happy once I achieve this," or, "I wish I was as happy as my friend who has this job," and feeling down on myself because this is what I'm doing. And I really think it does go back to everything we have been talking about to truly understand your leadership style, to reflect
Mm,
back on your career, but even for new leaders, and I get this a lot with even aspiring leaders or brand new leaders, and they're saying, "Well, I don't have much experience to look back on. All I can do is look forward. And and I want to be CEO someday, or I want to be vice president, or how did my friend advance so quickly in their career and I'm going nowhere?" And it's like thinking back to even when you were a child and what
mm,
brought you joy, that work. And not to say I'm not a therapist, but as we as coaches, we're really in the present and looking towards goals. But if you're a new leader or an aspiring leader, thinking back to those things that brought you joy as a child or as you were growing up or going through college or your first job, those are real experiences. And some of them brought you joy. Some of them brought you frustration. And that's part of your reflection. That is part of your journey. And it's part of understanding and being okay with who you are and looking at, you know, um, one of the inspirations. I know I mentioned Michael Singer, but if you think about like Carl Rogers and thinking about a person centered approach, and you think about the whole person and who you are, how you show up, what are you present in your current situation? Are you listening to other people? Are you listening for yourself? Are you listening for them? Are you responding, or are you just snap judgment, knee
mm,
jerk reaction? So, really, just kind of taking everything that we've talked about and and thinking about the things that have brought you joy, the things that have taught you in life, and using them as you go on your journey, and really recognizing, I'm okay in this place right now because this is who I am right now. And I have joy because I do these other things. You don't always have to have all the joy in your work right now. And I've had a lot of leaders tell me that, you know what? I I know that right now it's tough, leaders who were, maybe going through medical school, or they're going through some sort of a transition. But on the side, they're also teaching other people, or they're coaching soccer, or they're raising their children, or, there's a lot to our lives that make it very complex. And sometimes we do need to kind of multitask our heart and really think about what are the things that are lighting me up, that are keeping me going, that help to stabilize me while I'm going through this other major transition?
Hmm. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I can relate to this feeling because um we think that we are supposed to have a linear path, especially in business, but uh, not only leadership or business, but life, it's anything but straight lines.
Right.
So definitely,
Very
I think
zigzaggy.
yeah, I know. And I used to think it as a straight line a few years back, but it has been a really, really um a huge learning curve for me, especially in the last 5 years, especially during pandemic and after pandemic. And I guess for almost every one of us, we have learned from a huge setback, and personally as well. Um, let's embrace those detours or those zigzags
Yeah.
as a part of the story, part of the journey, those little hiccups, but a lot to learn from them instead of just seeing them as a setback and then judging ourselves. So
Right,
Patty,
right, right. And
yeah,
you're, you have you have other things in your life that will bring you joy, and being open to knowing that there is joy out there. It may not be in the exact job that you have right now, or maybe you're moving, or maybe, your friend has left, or you've lost a loved one. Lean on when you have that transition, when you have the instability, lean on the things as you get to know yourself better. What are those things that are helping to stabilize me? What are those things that are bringing me joy right now that I can lean on while I'm going through this transition?
absolutely. Wonderful, wonderful, Patty. So before we wrap up, if our listeners would like to connect with you, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. So my website is pattyfeeney.com. And like I said, I have the Genuine Leader podcast that is on wherever you listen to podcasts. And that will soon be transitioning to the Then What podcast as well. And I also have a YouTube channel that is Crumbs and Conversations with Patty Feeney.
Lovely, lovely. Uh, and I'll make sure to have all the links and details in the show notes. And Patty, thank you. Thank you so much for this refreshing conversation and reminder that leadership isn't always having all the answers, but it is about showing up and with scars and all, but then also continuing to move forward. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Santa.
So, to all of my listeners out there, if today's conversation has resonated with you, it is surely with me. Check out Patty's work and her podcast, and also check out her website and YouTube channel. I'll have all the links mentioned in the show notes for you. And until next time on BizBlend, stay resilient, stay curious, and remember that the middle might be messy, but it is where the magic happens. So with that, this is your host Sana signing off from BizBlend. Thank you.